There's a hell of a lot in a name, that's for sure. Get it right and potential audiences will instantly know what a movie is all about. But get it wrong and you'll leave them confused, or worse still, totally apathetic. But a botched name doesn't have to be the end of the world, as studios aren't beyond renaming movies for the subsequent home video release, or in extreme cases, even altering their title while they're still in cinemas. Whether the films were good or bad, or whether or not the name change was actually warranted, each ditched their original title in lieu of one which they hoped would get more favourable eyes on the project. And as a result, I'm Gareth from Whatculture.com, and here are 10 movies that aren't titled what you think. Number 10, Birds of Prey got a more search engine friendly title on release week. We'll begin with the most current example, which is of course the recently released Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. The film's disappointingly soft box office opening quickly prompted Warner Bros. To act, authorizing cinema chains to rename it in their listings to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, in the hope of aiding ticket sales. Given that the film's original title was both obnoxiously overlong and failed to emphasize the feature attraction herself, many expressed concern before the film's release that it could affect the bottom line, and here we are. It's almost like we the fans actually know what we want. Warner Bros. Went on to clarify that the title change was primarily in order to boost the film's accessibility on search engines and ticketing websites. Number 9, Edge of Tomorrow became Live, Die, Repeat on home video. This Tom Cruise starring sci-fi action flick was originally supposed to be charmingly named All You Need Is Kill, after Hiroshi Sakurazaka's source novel, though Warner Bros. Ultimately insisted upon the decidedly more generic Edge of Tomorrow. Between this and the film's lackluster marketing campaign, it wasn't much of a surprise that the $178 million tentpole underwhelmed at the box office, even with some of the strongest reviews of any blockbuster released in 2014. Warner Bros. Decided to take the film's Live, Die, Repeat tagline and effectively make it the movie's newer, catchier title. In different markets around the world, it was now known as Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow. Ironically, this was the title originally suggested by the film's director himself, Doug Liman, which Warner Bros. Rejected and decided to use as the tagline instead. The title change was seemingly a success, as Live, Die, Repeat was a strong seller on home video. Enough that Warner Bros. Eventually greenlit a sequel with the knowing title Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat. Better late than never, eh? Number 8, Ghostbusters 2016 was given the subtitle Answer the Call. Paul Feig's botched 2016 reboot of the Ghostbusters franchise similarly received a retitling for home video, with the movie's Answer the Call tagline being tacked onto the Ghostbusters moniker. Unlike Edge of Tomorrow though, Ghostbusters 2016's end credit sequence did actually refer to the film as Ghostbusters Answer the Call, as a result of a compromise between Feig and Paramount. The studio didn't want 2 movies in their catalogue called Ghostbusters, while Feig objected to formally naming the film Ghostbusters 2016, so they agreed to use the tagline as a subtitle instead, on the agreement that it would only be used at the end of the movie and not the opening titles. This title was then used in earnest for the film's home video release, presumably in the hope of distinguishing it from the 1984 original a little easier. Aside from, the entirely different cast on the front cover and the fact that the original was actually good. Number 7, Bastille Day was renamed The Take. Don't feel bad if you don't remember this Idris Elba and Richard Madden starring action thriller from 2016, because it came and went without a peep at the UK box office, before being renamed for both its European home video release and American theatrical rollout later in the year. Bastille Day was subsequently retitled The Take, a move widely accepted to be a result of the July 2016 Nice terrorist attack which killed 86 people, and also resulted in the film being pulled from cinemas in France under its original title. And so an already intensely generic and forgettable film somehow became even more of a painfully unimaginative cinematic non-event. And it's probably for the best, really. Number 6, Star Wars added Episode 4 A New Hope. When the original Star Wars first hit cinemas back in 1977, it was simply titled as such, given that nobody could have imagined the unstoppable pop culture monolith it would become. Star Wars' success, of course, led to George Lucas producing 2 follow-ups in the years that followed, namely the immediate sequel The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. Though the Star Wars sequel's title crawl indeed referred to it as Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back, reflecting Lucas's desire to eventually make a prequel trilogy, this designation was only added to the original film retroactively for its 1981 re-release. And so Star Wars became Star Wars Episode 4 New Hope. which originally opened on a block of text without any subtitle whatsoever. And just like that, the titling convention for the series was cemented, one which will likely never change for as long as mainline Star Wars episodes are made. Number 5. The Mighty Ducks was renamed The Mighty Ducks Are the Champions in several home video markets. Here's where things get really messy. You're probably aware that the original Mighty Ducks movie is most commonly referred to as The Mighty Ducks. But in the UK, South Africa, and Australia, it was needlessly renamed to Champions for its theatrical release. But Disney rather awkwardly half-backpedaled for the film's home video release, opting for an iffy compromise by combining the two original titles to create the new moniker, The Mighty Ducks Are the Champions. It doesn't even end there though. When the sequel, D2 The Mighty Ducks, hit screens, it was renamed The Mighty Ducks in the aforementioned countries, in an apparent attempt to avoid confusion, while paradoxically just creating more of it. I need to sit down. Number 4. Dark Phoenix added an X-Men subtitle for home video. Bafflingly, the US release of the final mainline X-Men movie, Dark Phoenix, opted to forego the expected X-Men branding designation, hoping to pull a Logan and succeed on its own, admittedly far more dubious merits. To the surprise of literally no one, Dark Phoenix tanked at the box office worldwide. And when the movie hit home videos a few months later, Fox decided to restore the X-Men subtitle which was present in its international theatrical release. To really hammer the point home, the cover art for the movie now featured the word X-Men in a huge bold typeface, several times larger than the Dark Phoenix itself in fact. Though it's unlikely that the film enjoyed an Edge of Tomorrow-like resurgence at home due to it being, not very good, clearly this should have just been its global title from the very beginning. Number 3. Mission Without Permission reverted to the original title, Catch That Kid. Pretty much the only reason that anyone remembers this 2004 family comedy is that it stars a 12-year-old Kristen Stewart and couldn't be any further from the types of movies she's pursued as an adult. And I, for one, quite enjoyed this movie when I was a kid. But in the UK, Catch That Kid was, for reasons unknown, renamed to Mission Without Permission, paraphrasing the tagline used on the film's US posters. They're on a mission without permission because, get it? It rhymes. Woo! Number 2. Raiders of the Lost Ark added Indiana Jones for the 1999 VHS remaster. When the first Indiana Jones movie was released back in 1981, it was simply named Raiders of the Lost Ark, speaking to its initially standalone nature, despite director Steven Spielberg and co-writer George Lucas hoping it would be successful enough for a sequel to be produced. And that it certainly was. Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course, led to 1984's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And from that point onward, each subsequent sequel would follow the Indiana Jones and the naming convention. But in order to ensure a consistent titling among the films, Raiders of the Lost Ark's 1999 VHS remaster saw it renamed to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. To date, however, the in-film title hasn't been altered to reflect this. That's not us saying that it needs to be, please leave it alone, George Lucas. Number 1. The Wind added the subtitle Demons of the Prairie for home video. The Wind was one of the most evocative horror films and impressive directorial debuts of 2019. And if you're a fan of the genre, you absolutely need to check it out. But because the title admittedly doesn't tell a potential viewer much about the film at all, distributor IFC Midnight opted to rename The Wind for its global home video release, adding a quote from the movie itself as a subtitle, The Wind, Demons of the Prairie. Sadly, one suspects this might have been a cynical move to sell the movie as a broader, trashier horror vehicle than it actually is, playing up the demonic aspect, which in fact is incredibly subtle and low-key in the film itself. But again, if you're a fan of eerie, low-budget horror and can get past that goofy title, there's a lot to like here, so go and treat yourself.